Welcome back to Faithfully Feminist, a space where we tell the stories of women who lived with courage, integrity, and quiet faith in a world that often misunderstood them. Today's story comes from a place I, for one, didn't expect. I found her by chance, through a late-night YouTube rabbit hole. And maybe that's how God brings these things, these stories, to us sometimes. Quietly, almost like a whisper, asking us, will you listen? Will you remember? Will you be faithful? Today, we remember Iva Toguri D'Aquino. She was not a Catholic, and she was not canonized. But nonetheless, her life was a witness to truth, to dignity, to loyalty under fire. She showed what it means to hold fast to who you are, even when the world tries to strip that away. She lived a kind of gospel-like courage, quiet, persistent, and oh my, was it costly. And today, her story becomes part of ours. Ava was born in Los Angeles in 1916, and she was a daughter of America. As an American citizen, a daughter of immigrants, Ava was raised between two worlds. She grew up embracing her country with pride. In 1941, just before the outbreak of World War II, she traveled to Japan to visit a sick aunt. She planned to stay briefly, and then come home. And then the war came. Pearl Harbor was bombed, and Ava found herself stranded, trapped between two nations, neither of which fully claimed her anymore. Imagine that, to belong to nowhere. And yet, her first act of faith was this. She refused to renounce her American citizenship. She could have chosen safety, privilege even, easier treatment by the American and Japanese governments alike. But she didn't. She clung to the truth of who she was, even as the world shifted underneath her feet. In Japan, Ava struggled to survive. She found work as a typist. Eventually, she was forced onto Radio Tokyo, pressured to participate in English-language propaganda broadcasts. She didn't want it. She didn't believe in it. But she adapted, doing what she could to undermine the messages she was being asked to deliver. American servicemen later said they recognized the sarcasm, the subversion, the humanity that was behind those broadcasts. She was not a traitor. She was a woman trying to hold onto her soul in the middle of captivity. In a foreign land, under foreign pressure, she remained faithful to the truth as she understood it. Not perfectly, definitely not triumphantly, but by God if it was not with persistence. And isn't that so often what faithfulness looks like, in actuality? Not dramatic victories, but daily endurance. After the war ended, Ava could have hidden her story. Instead, she spoke openly, believing that truth would protect her. But history tells a harder story. She became a scapegoat, one woman blamed for an entire nation's anger, fear, and grief. She was charged with treason. She was tried in a court, hungry for someone to punish, convicted on flimsy evidence, sentenced to 10 years in prison for words she had spoken to survive. And still, amidst it all, she endured. She endured, and she bore the justice, quietly, steadfastly, and most of all, without bitterness. Her cross was not the one she chose, but she carried it anyway, with a strength rooted not in resentment, but in grace. After her release from prison, Iva lived quietly. She married, she worked, she served her community. She never became rich. She never sought revenge. She never denounced the country that had betrayed her. Instead, she forgave. She said, "I love America, and I always will." Those words are more than patriotism. They are the language of a woman who understood mercy, of someone who knew that faithfulness does not depend on fairness, that dignity is not given or taken by courts or crowds, that God sees what history forgets. In 1977, President Gerald Ford officially pardoned her, acknowledging the injustice Iva had endured. But Iva's real vindication came not from governments. It came from the quiet integrity of her life. A life that, much like Christ's, bore suffering in silence and answered it with love. Iva's story is not easy. It does not end with triumph or applause, but it does end with truth. And truth in the Christian life is always the beginning of resurrection. Iva teaches us that faithfulness is not about visibility. It's about fidelity when no one else is watching. That forgiveness is and always is a choice, a hard one, a holy one. And most of all, dignity cannot be destroyed, even when history tries to rewrite it. In a world that loves to raise up false heroes and tear down the real ones, Iva's story reminds us the world's judgments are not the final word. Only God's is. Today, as we remember Iva Toguri D'Aquino, we remember all the women history tried to erase. All the women who bore injustice without spectacle, who lived truthfully even when it hurt, who forgave even when the world forgot. Telling their stories is not just good history. It is an act of faith, an act of hope, and above all else, I hope you know it is an act of love. Because in the body of Christ, no voice is too small, no cross meaningless, and no act of endurance is ever wasted. Thank you, as always, for joining me on this episode of Faithfully Feminist. If Iva's story moved you, share it, hold it. Let it remind you that in God's eyes, the faithful are never forgotten, even if the world never knew their names. Until next time, stay faithful, stay fierce, stay free, and keep remembering the voices the world tried to silence, but heaven never will.